Thank you, Mrs. Melissa Chu and Mrs. Rachel Cooper, for your kind and warm words of introduction. Dear artists, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure for me to be at the Asia Society in a symposium on the Festival of Arts of Shiraz, Persepolis, a subject that is very close to my heart and full of memory and meaning for me. I have always held the Asia Society in great esteem and promoting understanding and cooperation among nations and cultures. Hi, baby. You will get bored. I would like to thank the organizers of the Iran Modern and the symposium, Melissa Chu, Senior Vice President, Global Arts and Cultural Programs, and Rachel Cooper, Director of Global Performing Artists and Special Cultural Initiatives, for inviting me to be here with you. I am also very pleased to see in the audience old friends like Professor Peter Chelkovsky and acquaintances from Iran and across the world, some of them for the first time in many years. Let me begin with a short prelude before I go to the Shiraz Arts Festival. I was born at the outset of the Second World War to a family worried about Iran's future, including its independence and territorial integrity, sentiments that most Iranians shared. As I grew up, I learned that much had been done for Iran in the 20 years before the war, but a great deal more needed to be done. As all teenagers do, my friends and I talked about the fields we might choose and the life we might lead. We assumed that whatever we did, serving Iran would be high on our agenda, a sentiment that also had become widespread over the years since the constitutional revolution. I decided to study architecture and set out for Paris in 1957, full of enthusiasm and excitement, intent on becoming an architect, and returned to work in Iran, and totally oblivious to the ironies of fortune. 2 years later, I was the Queen of Iran. When His Majesty Mohammad Reza Shah proposed to me, he made sure that I understood the travails and responsibilities of becoming the Queen of Iran. Suddenly, obligations to the country, always present but tangential to life's endeavor, became actual to my every option. It took some time for me to learn where exactly we stood in culture and art as a nation, and what our artists were producing, and just important, what they wanted to be done. The fact is that our country was on the move. By the middle of the 1960s, much would change in our social and economical life. The White Revolution would open new vistas for the future. Our economy would be on the verge of takeoff. Our women would gain the right to vote and would be elected to the parliament. Our farm workers would become landowners. Our factory workers would be on the road to become part owners of the factories. The feeling was in the air, affecting a wide range of people, including our artists who had achieved much and wanted more. I began with this brief prelude to point out that the Shiraz Arts Festival was the child of its time. It could not have existed had our nation not made the progress it had or generated the desire and the know-how that made it possible. It was part of a mosaic, a testimony that our nation had achieved or was on the verge of achieving a critical mass in various fields of cultural creativity. In some fields, like poetry, new thinking and experiments had begun in the 20s and 30s. In others, like painting, architecture, and especially the performing arts, music, theater, and film, the tempo of creativity was clearly accelerating about the time of the Shiraz Festival. All that pointed to a synergy created by the coming together of the demand of and the production of art forms. This effervescence of energy was a natural outgrowth of our history. As Iranians were heir to an ancient civilization with a glorious past and a culture with a vast reach that had greatly influenced its geographic environment both before and after the advent of Islam. We were also young people with not so glorious past in need of designing a present that could become a bridge to connect our past history and culture, of which we were very proud, with the future that our people desired and deserved. The connecting mechanism, generally referred to as modernization, was a confusing term, as it was and still is, often misconstrued as westernization. We, of course, admire all that the West had achieved in science, technology, and arts. We tried to learn and absorb as much as we could, but our idea of the future was not to be Western or to be westernized, just as it was not to be Eastern or Easternized. Lest this be brought polemic, let me emphasize that we were very much aware of being a developing country and that in many fields we lacked in basic necessities. But this did not mean we should accept the proposition that because we needed the wherewithal for growth and development, we should not aim for the best. I had the patronage and the privilege of helping the Institute for the Intellectual Development of Children and Young Adults, launched in 1966, headed by Mrs. Lilia Miarjuman. The Institute was meant to and soon did, spread across the country. In some far-off villages, mules had to be used to carry educational material to the village children. But no matter where in the country, method and material was the same for every child and young adult. Our best element in literature, music, plastic, and performing arts helped with the production of books, videos, films, paintings, posters, and everything else that was needed for the success of the project. Thus, we approach Iranian art as a living, growing, and expanding exercise in creativity rooted in the magnificence of our ancient and Islamic past, but free to look for the future and breathe and develop openly in contact with the best that the world offers. The Shiraz Arts Festival became the most famous example of this approach. Its formal purpose, as stated in my 1967 message, the first year of the festival, was to pay tribute to the nation's traditional arts, raise cultural standards in Iran, ensure wider appreciation of the work of Iranian artists, introduce foreign artists to Iran, and to acquaint the Iranian public with the traditional and the latest artistic developments of other countries. The programs provided a unique opportunity for Iranians to see the art forms of countries that until then they had only heard about. From Japanese No and India Kathakali to Rengamoi of Uganda and the capoeira from Brazil, from Balinese gamelan to drummers of Rwanda and to Arthur Rubinstein, Yehudi Menuhin, and Max Roach. In 1970, Jerzy Grotowski presented The Constant Prince in Bagh del Gosha. In 1971, Peter Brook directed Orgast in Persepolis and Nakhsh Rustam. In 1972, Robert Wilson put on Cow Mountain, a production that extended along the slope of a hill and lasted some 168 hours. And Andre Gregory presented Alice in Wonderland, and Andrei Sherban fragments of the Greek trilogy at Persepolis. In 1973, in Takht Jamshid, Maurice Béjart created and directed a ballet named Golestan, after the poet Saadi's masterpiece, embellished with the traditional Iranian music and Rumi's poetry. The romance of the places, like Hafizieh, Tomb of Hafiz, the most venerated Iranian poet, and the power and glory of Takht Jamshid and Nakhsh Rustam, reminders of the most glorious eras of Iranian history, offered inspiring sights for presenting art form. More important was the opportunity for Iranian artists to present their work next to the work of the best in the world, exciting interest and admiration for their creativity. In Iran, classical music recognized masters like Shahnazi, Ebadi, Shahnaz, Kasai, Paivar, Tehrani, Qawami, Shahid, and Karimi, and the young masters like Shajarian, Razavi, Parisa, Alizadeh, Lutfi, and Talai brought awe and respect for a noble art. And from the Asher music of Azerbaijan to the Persian Gulf music of Qeshm Island, from Kurdistan to Khuzestan and Baluchistan, the festival presented the best of our regional music. Bijan Mofid's Shahr Qisseh, one of the most successful Iranian theatrical productions ever, was first shown at the Shiraz Festival. Other writers and directors among them are Biovanessian, Nasirian, Khalaj, Javanmard presented significant works. Especially interesting and innovative was the introduction of Iranian religious theater Ta'zieh from the first Shiraz Arts Festival in 1967. In 1976, a group of scholars from Turkey, France, Italy, Germany, and the United States joined Iranian scholars in Shiraz in an international symposium presented by Professor Peter Chelkovsky to discuss Ta'zieh as ritual and art form. The same year, 7 Ta'zieh assembled by Muhammad Baqir Ghaffari presented in Kaftarak, a village near Shiraz, where some 70,000 viewers attended free of charge. The Shiraz Festival became a hub generating other thoughts and activities, including the Epic Festival of Tus in Mashhad in 1974 and the Festival of Popular Traditions in Isfahan in 1977. Dialogue Among Civilization, which I sponsored, was also conceived in discussions spring from the Shiraz Festival experience. The center established to promote dialogue among civilization organized its first international symposium titled Given the Global Impact of Occidental Thought, Is Real Dialogue Among Civilization Possible? In 1977. It was followed in the same year by the first exhibition of sub-Saharan art in Bagh Firdos in Tehran. I regret that there is no way I can name and thank all the Iranians and non-Iranians whose participation and dedication made the Shiraz Arts Festival its achievement possible. Here I would like to pay tribute to the young, dedicated men and women who worked very hard to help organize the festival. In particular, special recognition is due to the National Iranian Television, which contributed to artists take decisions and to manage and staff the festival throughout its life. Aside from that, its chamber orchestra, Center for the Preservation and Propagation of Iranian Music, and the theater workshop were major contributors to the festival. I cannot conclude this talk without remembering the festival's directors, the late Farah Pahlavi, to whom much of this festival's artistic success is owed. I would like to celebrate his life by recalling here what he said of the festival years after it had ended. Sorry. No festival has done what the Shiraz Festival did during its lifetime. The 10 to 12 days of the festival created an exceptional cultural and human environment for the artists to learn of each other's accomplishments, to establish contact and friendship with each other and with their public. The festival brought together the performing arts of nations possessing an ancient culture with those of Europe and North America. Sometimes the two were combined, as in the works of Peter Brook and Maurice Béjart. The Shiraz Festival was the only one of its kind that offered these two opportunities. A third contribution of the festival was that it helped the third world artists overcome their shyness vis-à-vis the Western art. Conversely, it brought the Western artists face to face with the extraordinary works created by non-Western traditional as well as modern artists. Again, I would like to thank the Asia Society and take this opportunity to wish the organizer of the weighty and timely event great success. Thank you.